Hello, this is Paul Chek, and I'd invite you today to take back your world, baby. So today I want to talk about the things that are important for us to understand with regard to what I mean when I say take back your world. It can be a bit misleading because your world indicates possession, but we'll have to look into that so that we realize exactly what it is that your world means. So let's get started on that note. Here you can see I have a diagram to begin with. As I said just a second ago, we must ask the question, what is your world? Well, using Ken Wilber's genius 4-quadrant model, which shows essentially how spirit or life force or energy and light unfolds to create all the things that we call our world. And in those teachings we come to concepts like matter is spirit moving slowly enough so that we can interact with it. So for those of you that have a spiritual inclination, everything that we would call our world is spirit, which is energy, information, light, moving slowly enough that we can interact with it. Now, using Ken Wilber's 4-quadrant model, we can really get a little bit closer to what is your world. So these 4 quadrants are the personal interior, which I write here as our inner story. So that's the thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, desires, fears, all of the things that are subjective inside of us that cannot be weighed or measured, while the personal exterior is your physical body, your behaviors, anything that can be filmed or evaluated, and anything that can be measured, such as electroencephalogram, electrocardiogram, electromyogram, muscle activities, hormone activities, brainwave activities, all of which are the products of what's on the inside. So as Osho says, you can cut open the dancer, here's the dancer, but you cannot find the dance, which is the story inside the dancer. But the key point here is what we're weighing, measuring, and looking at is really the result of the inner activity of what we would often refer to as spirit, that which is inside of us, moving us, but can't be captured as a tangible, weighable, or measurable idea. Then we have collective interior, which is the thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, desires, loves, and fears of the collective, which starts with our family, moves out to our tribe, to larger groups such as cities, states, provinces, nations, and all the way out to the world. And the collective exterior is the stage, so that's everything that we need to express ourselves and to live, such as the earth, education systems, electronic systems, schools, roads, buildings, everything that we use that gives us a way to do. If we had no collective exterior, there would be no body and there would be no family in this realm of existence. We might be in another realm where you don't need matter. Maybe you could get by just on a light body, such as is the characteristics of the astral realm. So what you can see right off the bat is when we ask what is your world is first and foremost the world itself, but none of us could be here without a family. So our world includes our family, our tribe, our society, our nation, our culture. And since our cultures are no longer, shall we say, pure in their origin, because we're all mixed in races with very few exceptions now. So when we say, well, what does it mean to be an American? It's not something different than it means to be Chinese or Japanese or Indian, because America is full of Chinese, Japanese, Indians, Mexicans, and everything else on the planet. So that's one of the key things I want to distinguish, is that, you know, when you do a gene test to find out who you are, you find out that you're everybody, even people that you think you don't like. So this is where the ego kind of gets to confront its own biases and invisible walls that it's created, and decide whether it wants to deal in reality or fantasy. And when we're in a situation where we're using fantasy instead of reality, we end up with the kinds of challenges that we have both in ourselves, in our families, and collectively with the world. So that's basically the essential map of who we are. So when we say my world, we are saying the world itself, the physical world. We're saying our family, friends, and everyone that's ever touched us, every teacher we've ever had, everybody that's inspired us, everybody that's ever scared us enough to study more, grow more. All of these things, you can't really identify yourself as individual from all of them, because if you took all that out of you, then what would be left? Well, a zombie, a body with no spirit moving through it, except that which is purely biological. So then you have your inner life, which is made of all of these, because these things are all dependent upon that. And again, your body couldn't be here without the physical materials and the biological components, such as your organs, your glands, which relate to the plant kingdom, and your musculoskeletal system, which correlates to the animal kingdom. So when we look at what are we saying when we take back our world, we're saying first and foremost to recognize what you are, and that to take back your world really means, what do I as an individual need to be conscious of that I must regain through my conscious efforts and actions in order to create sustainability, so that whatever my dream is, I can not only live it effectively, but know that through the action of living my dream, I'm supporting others in living their dreams in a way that makes it safe for all of us to enjoy the stage upon which we act our story with the cast and crew. Now, when we talk about spirit enlivening this whole thing, well, we could say that the most essential form of spirit is love itself. I define love as the flow of energy and information through empathic and compassionate connection to self or other, and that can be others. I also define love as consciousness becoming aware of itself. Now, that's not self-consciousness. That means the consciousness behind all creation itself. Some people call it God. Some people call it Spirit. Some people call it Allah, whatever. Some people call it the zero-point field, which is fantastic as well. It doesn't really matter, because the real currency that allows life to grow and to thrive is love itself, and love can be broken down into two essential characteristics or modes of expression, and they interestingly correlate beautifully with the Taoist or Chinese model of yin, the feminine, and yang, the masculine, as the two elemental creative forces. Now, a key feature about masculine power is that it divides power. So masculine energy divides things. If you have an example of masculine power is to divide the world into nations and to try to control the nations. So you take what was one thing and break it up into other things, build borders, and then you have wars and so on and so forth. And then you spend money on defense budgets and divide the resources again. So now we're dividing power again. And then, without going into a long expose, if this energy runs wild, well, then we have too much of these qualities. Each of these qualities has a value of benefit, especially when we're raising children. We need to have both eros and agape love, or the child will be out of balance. So The positive elements of Eros is to adventure out, to conquer. We always have to be strong enough to stand up for ourselves in a healthy way. We've got to build things. So how do you build homes? You divide the forest. You take what was a forest and you cut down trees, and then you take them to the sawmill and you cut them into boards. So you keep dividing, 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 and then you can say the act of building the house goes back to a form of yin expression because you create containment with it. So we have building, we have controlling. It's the masculine energy to protect. A bigger brother or sister usually protects their younger siblings, so protection is there. We have greater individual consciousness because the energy of Eros takes us out into the world to engage, and it is through our successes and our challenges and our pains that we become conscious of what happens when we invest our energy in a specific way. So the Eros energy is I am, which is usually in the less developed individual I do. Who are you? I'm a teacher. Who are you? I'm a carpenter. Who are you? I'm a scientist. So our culture is quite masculinized, so it goes really into its sense of self as it's doing. And if your sense of self is too identified by your doing, paradoxically, you can get yourself to the situation we have now where if a person's not doing something that they identify with themselves, then they feel alone, isolated, afraid. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to be with themselves because everything's about what you can weigh, what you can measure, and what you can get a grade on or get patted on the back for, or something that others feel is tangible. Masculine energy is about I have, and what you have to defend. So if you take these qualities and hold that thought, then we have to juxtapose them against the feminine qualities. So if you think about what a mother's function is in raising a family and what women offer the world, their concern is what do we need? So they try to create equality amongst the kids. They don't overfeed one at the expense of another. A woman has to share with her typically masculine counterpart, the husband, what is it that we need so that he can go out and get it, hunt it, capture it, whatever you've got to do. If a woman needs a fence built to keep the chickens from getting eaten up by the other animals, then we have to create some form of enclosure and protect. So you see the masculine supporting the feminine. The woman's connecting and she's nurturing. She's supporting life in growing and learning how to engage the world. The woman is more the feeling nature, where the man's more about doing and having, the balls to face the fire of whatever has to be done, which often in the male requires a dumbing down or a deadening of feelings in order to not let the feelings pull you off from a state of objective. So if you don't feel, then you start killing without feeling, and you don't know when to stop killing, which is a problem we have today. We connect. So the mother is largely the one that tries to keep everybody connected and often is responsible directly or indirectly by bringing the man, when he comes home, down into his family, out of the world, down into his family, to give him something to eat and to support him in sharing the day, what happened with the kids, what happened with her, what's important, what's working, what's not working. So the woman's a real connector, and we need connection. If we don't have connection, not only do people not grow, but plants and animals don't grow well, and that's scientific fact. Mother nurtures, mother listens. Mother has to learn to listen in a way that most men don't invest the time to do, because for the first couple of years, her children, which have real distinct needs and are the most vulnerable to the external forces of nature, i.e. to getting killed, have to communicate to mom and siblings and even dad in ways that don't use language. So we can't use our rational thinking process. We have to go deep into our feeling process, or we can't really connect excuse me, and listen to the child. So it's a very important quality of the female to listen more effectively. And women are also the givers. They give us the hugs, they give us the kisses, they give us the meals, they give us the nurture at bedtime as children and even throughout life. And even in gay relationships, someone typically takes the masculine and someone takes the feminine polarity. That's just how the whole universe works. So giving is very important. A woman is more likely, in my observation, to give food to someone either in her extended family or in their local area, tribe, group, church, that needs food, even if father says, we're low on food, you shouldn't do that. It's in her heart to try to support, and it's probably never her intention to diminish the survival of the family, but women have a distinct sense of what it takes to keep a tribe running, and usually have to work to manage the men so they don't destroy the tribe, which is why most Native American and tribal governments up until, a few thousand years ago were largely run by women and were matriarchal for our own survival. So the women tend to give, and through the feminine energy we have greater nurture and support for collective consciousness. Not just what do I need, but what does the next door neighbor need? Because if we need to borrow equipment to farm our fields or work with those people in reciprocity, then we have to be concerned with the collective. And if we don't grow collective consciousness, then we grow collective unconsciousness. And where there's collective unconsciousness, there's going to be a lack of feminine energy and a dominance of masculine energy. Now, if this masculine energy runs wild, we have too much adventuring out, and that can be adventuring out of our own sense of rationality, such as believing too much in science and technology, even though we have all these fancy degrees and inventions everywhere that are supposed to make life easy, everything from phones to microwave ovens to instant this to instant that, but we're sicker physically, emotionally, and mentally than we've probably ever been, in the world's in the most dangerous state we're in. So, for example, excess masculine says, let's build a space station on Mars. Let's build one on the moon. Because things are getting shitty here on Earth, and one day we're going to have to leave, but you forget that only a few people will be leaving, and it's the ones that are largely responsible for too much masculine energy, too much destruction, too much control, and too much power mongering. So when you take this venturing out, conquering, building, controlling, excessive protection, and overly individual consciousness to a dangerous limit, then you're in what I call great trumble. That's not trouble, it's Trumple, great trumple. The beauty of Donald Trump is he is the perfect exemplification of this energy gone wild in dangerous lack of feminine energy. And my hat is off to the woman who is his wife, because it must be a very, very interesting, almost shamanic experience with bad medicine. In all fairness, he's a human being, and he's doing us a favor because he's waking us up to our collective consciousness, because no one person voted Trump in. So I'm using Donald Trump not to pick on Donald Trump, but to say he is mirroring us back to us. He is us. It's easy to say he's not us, but he's all of us. Even if you don't live in the United States, when you understand what I'm sharing here, there is no United States, except that we are all united in every state. And that's the deeper truth. Everything else is an illusion that we buy into at great expense. So we have our interior, our inner life. We have our body, what we express, what we create. We could call it our own personal garden. We have our cast and our crew, the collective interior, the people starting in our family and branching out to teachers, society, leaders, etc. And we have the stage it all acts on. So now to continue further, what is your world? Well, your world is made of earth, the element earth. It is made of water. It is made of fire or warmth from the sun and light from the sun. Without photosynthesis, you'd have nothing to eat. It's made of air. Without air, there'd be no plants, there'd be no animals, there'd be no life, there'd be no you. And without space, well, then we'd have no place for any of this to be. So interestingly, your world is the functional equivalent of our world. Whatever we believe is ours as an individual is more deeply, truly everyone's as a collective. And when we get too caught up in our individuality at the expense of conscious awareness of our unity, we bring ourselves into painful awareness, and that painful awareness, if drugged and medicated, decreases consciousness. But if one looks into this very deeply and says, what will we need to do to make it a safe place for all of us to have our world, then we begin to understand more about ourselves and more about reality and less about, fiction, really, or fantasy. Now, so what we have here is our collective interior. So before I go on, though, to take back your world means to support what ultimately sustains your life dream. What is it that sustains your life dream? In my PPS teachings, Chek 4 Quadrant teachings, and Chek Holistic Lifestyle Coaching teachings, I remind everybody that no dream worth living can be done by yourself. And if you think that you're doing it by yourself, I simply say, who made your computer? Who made the clothes you're wearing? Who made the shoes you're wearing? The car you're driving? The toilet paper you wipe your backside with? Who's your family? Who's your banker? Who's your travel agent? Who made the tools you need? Etc. Right? So if we get too individualized and too self-centered in our consciousness, we forget that our dreams all depend on each other. And the more of us that are living our dreams in sustainable ways, the more happy we are, and the more happy others are, and the more agape energy we can bring back into the world. You could call Eros, or masculine energy, the energy of fire, and we could call agape the nurture of water. So air and fire would be the masculine. Air relates to the thinking process as well in man. So we have air, thinking and action, and down here we have nurturing. The water makes everything grow and connects, and we also have the earth, which we build homes out of, so it creates containment. So if you have too much air and fire, then you ruin containment. If you have too much containment, then you can't grow consciousness because you're sort of in limbo. So when we get to the collective interior, the cast and the crew, that's family, tribe, religion. What beliefs and actions decrease sustainability or threaten your dream? Remember, your dream is our dream. My dream is your dream. So we have to look carefully at our family, tribe, or religious beliefs because they're the basis of the choices that we make. And if you don't think they are, it usually just means you're unconscious of your own programming. But any skilled therapist with the kind of training I offer my students can dissect that ignorance quickly. So what beliefs and actions sustain or threaten your dream? So if your dream is to go to Mars, but to get to Mars means that we invest money into a Martian space program that should be invested into rehabilitating the soils and protecting the oceans before they die and looking into the things that need to be supported in a feminine way immediately so that we have the sustainability to even imagine about going to Mars, then it means it's time to reevaluate. In other words, the dream needs to be more effectively qualified so that we can put our energy, time, and resources where they need to be so that we can build things in a sustainable way. When you're building a pyramid, you don't put the capstone up first and then try to build up to it, because the amount of energy it would take to hang that thing there would be, unachievable as a metaphor. So then we go to our personal interior, and that's up here. That's where our story is. So we need to really spend time within ourselves and ask, who and what am I? Well, who and what we are is we are the earth, we are the water, we are the fire, we are the air, we are the space. We are the energy that makes it all possible. We're the information that makes it potentially meaningful. So when you get down to that, and I would encourage you to do that as your own meditative process, not just hearing the words, go down inside yourself deeply in the quietude of your own inner sanctuary and ask these questions honestly, or you'll really just be acting out everybody else's story and programming like a programmed robot. So, am I creating what I want to see in the world? And how do we look into that? Well, we have to look at each of us has a personal echo, and we have a family echo, and we have a collective echo that goes from family to tribe to society to state or province to nation to world. So when it comes to your personal interior and what we need to sustain the personal exterior and the collective exterior, which means to sustain family and friends, we have to look at how are we managing and using energy. That's a critical issue. I don't want to go into the depth of it here for time's sake, but look at what we're doing to the planet to get energy when it's completely unnecessary. And to take your world back. Take back your world means, how can I live my life today, right now, in a way that's more sustainable? How can I use less fossil fuels? And it can be simple things. One, if you want to really contribute, you can trade your car in for a more efficient car or even an electric car or a hybrid car. Two, you can drive less often and use a bicycle more or walk more or ride share or use social transit systems. Three, you can do minor things like eat things that are sustainable and support local farmers. You can flush your toilet even one time less a day. If millions and millions of people do that, that's millions and millions of gallons of water saved. So the key point really here is, when it comes to how we're using energy, ask yourself, what could I do today to make my actions more sustainable and be a living, example to others, so that if they replicate my actions, our chances of sustainability go up, which means we're respecting Mother Earth, we're respecting nature, we're respecting the little creatures in the soil, and we're not killing off nature at a very dangerous pace. Chemistry. What about your chemistry? If you poison the stage, the external world, you got to remember that everything that comes into your body comes from out here. So if we're using billions of pounds of pesticides, herbicides, rodenticides, fungicides, and growing plants that produce pesticides in them, as Monsanto so ingeniusly has got so many people doing, well, then we aren't really paying attention to the fact that our chemistry is being seriously disrupted. You add dangerous medical drugs to that are overused and unintelligently prescribed. You add environmental chemicals. You add things like chemicals. Even a new carpet has been shown to release something along the line of 30,000 toxic chemicals for the first year it's on the floor. New cars emit something like 60,000+ toxic chemicals. So when we look at the reality of what I'm sharing, we have to be conscious of what we're purchasing and what we're investing our money into, that on the things that seem outside of us, because they come into us through the water, through the air, through the food, through our skin. So there's no real escape. So first we have to learn to manage our energy. We have to manage our chemistry, and the best way to do that is, remember, the best solution for pollution is dilution. So drink at least half your body in ounces of water a day, or your body weight in kilograms times 0.033 in liters of water a day. And make sure to do your best to not keep buying bottled water that's in plastic, because research shows it takes 3 times as much water as the bottle holds to make the plastic of the bottle that you're holding. So little things matter. Get a stainless steel or a ceramic or a glass container, do it up special, paint it, make it uniquely your own, put your love into it, say beautiful things, put words on it if it's glass like Masaru Emoto taught us, but reuse that and minimize the use of plastics as one example. So hydration becomes critical, and for a lot of us, we've got to be conscious about not wasting water. There's many places in the world that have water shortages. And then organisms. What organisms should we be eating for ideal health and wellness? And to break this down real simple, if you take commercial farming and you eat poisoned animals that are poisoned not only in their food but in their environment, and you try to eat those organisms, well, there's no question you're going to get poisoned. If they use piles of antibiotics in them and you eat them, then you're likely to get antibiotic resistance and have a disrupted bacterial profile, a gut biome, which leads to all sorts of physical, emotional, and mental problems. So we have to be conscious of the organisms. Remember, those organisms are as much a part of this planet as we are. They're as important to the planet as we are. And the idea that humans are somehow above all that and can just ignore it is kind of like somebody worshiping the capstone of a pyramid and not realizing that there's many other layers and a foundation that are essential for the capstone to be there, without which the capstone has no meaning because there is nothing to cap. So what am I creating each day? What energy am I investing in? What am I doing to my chemistry and the chemistry of the planet? What am I doing to the water, and what am I putting in my body? What am I doing to the organisms, and what am I putting in my body? Knowing that I cannot be any better than my echo, and my choices echo out into the environment. And here's where it's critical. If you say hello to the Grand Canyon, you said hello, you put sound waves into the canyon, you made an input, but the canyon says hello back to you, and it mirrors you back to you. When we are destructive to nature, we put that destructive force out there, but she must make changes in order to survive, and those things include changes that are out of our control, such as earthquakes, floods, and environmental disasters, and things that lead to a lot of trouble. So we have to remember that our individual choices have a large collective effect on the environment, and it will rebound in a righting reaction that could easily destroy untold numbers of individuals who will lose their dream because they were largely unconscious of the power of their own echo. So what are my values, and are they sustainable? What are the values that you use to say yes or to say no? When do I say yes or no to food? When do I say yes or no to what I'm drinking? When do I say yes or no to how I'm using energy, driving my car, heating my house, flushing my toilet, and who am I supporting in war efforts for president or any of these types of things? We have to become conscious of this, or we will lose our individual opportunity for dreams, because we will be in too deep a trouble to worry about our dreams. We will be worrying about surviving. Okay? So, number 2, I equals world, we, and I. So paradoxically, we think of ourselves first, but the reality of it, without the world, there is no self. There's a bigger self called the world. There's a bigger self called we. It took a we to make the I. It took your mother and your father to make you, and your mother and father couldn't be here without the world. So the paradox of it is, well, we tend to be self-centered or egocentric in the choices that we make, and all the way up to the issue of government. If we are self-centric and we only think about what we want and start excluding other people and excluding natural resources and excluding inventions that give us free energy because rich people want to control the planet and ruin it unconsciously, well, then we actually begin to suffer so much that we deteriorate the world, and as we deteriorate the world, we deteriorate each other, and we become a nation full of people fighting as much in the home as they do on television and in the world, and that's the beginning of the end, quite frankly. Okay? So to take back your world means to nurture what you really are. To take back your world means to nurture what you really are. So we need to take that masculine energy and consciously direct it into protecting and nurturing the feminine at this time. And most of us need to do that in ourselves because we have a head full of judgments about what we should do, how big we should be, how strong we should be, how fast we should be, how rich we should be, how powerful we should be, how beautiful we should be. And almost all that just is driven by the media machine and the marketing gimmicks and the I, me, my kind of consciousness. But if we use that to protect what the feminine has always stood for, we can bring ourselves into balance, and we can celebrate ourselves as an individual that's part of a much greater collective, without which love really has no meaning, because what good is love if you have nobody to love? And if you don't have a planet to love, then you don't have each other to love. So it's really not that complicated, but we get very, very distracted chasing after things that were largely programmed by religion and corporations and people with agendas to go after, which is unconscious behavior. So my final comment is to remember that love is a boomerang. The unique feature of a boomerang is when you throw it, it comes back to you. So whatever you give on love is what comes back to you, whether you like it or not. And if you're unconscious about what you threw out, then you're likely to get more conscious when it hits you and you got blood running down your face. What I'm trying to inspire all of us to do is not to wait until we're bleeding, to say, oops, ready, fire, aim behavior. And we are in big trouble. And I think it's a beautiful thing because he's waking us up to what happens when masculine energy reaches its zenith. And if it goes any further, instead of flipping back over and becoming yin, it becomes a total state of destruction and annihilation. And I don't think that's ideal for anybody, especially the kids on the planet. So some resources that can help you. My book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, has a series of questionnaires I designed to help you identify exactly where you're out of balance, and chapters to guide you to how to get yourself healthy, all of which is in harmony with what I share here and in all my blogs. The Last 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need, How to Get Healthy Now, multimedia ebook. It's got little slideshows, audios, video clips, and text. And it shows you how to live the basic 4-doctor philosophy, identify what your dream is, what values you're willing to live to support the dream, how much movement do you need, how much rest do you need, and what is the ideal foods for your unique individuality. Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1 can be taken online or live through Chekinstitute.com, and it is a synthesis of these 2 programs put together with more added in a series of practical lessons taught by myself and Angie. And so there you have the yin and the yang being presented for you there. Very, very beautiful course. Put a lot of my time and energy into it. Thousands and thousands of people have taken it with great success and great joy. You Are What You Eat is all about the things you need to know about food. It's everything I couldn't put in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, because it would have made the book too long. So that's an audio recording that was actually 128 pages of text that the publishing consultants said we should reduce the size of the book, or the average reader is probably going to be overwhelmed, but it's very important. Then today we have massive problems with fungal and parasite infections due to all the imbalances that I'm talking about. And so I did this program that I think is very important for all of you to know about. About 90% of the world population has both a fungal and a parasite infection based on a number of different studies. And these things can really deteriorate the quality of your life and lead to physical, emotional, and mental problems and inability to work and to all sorts of disastrous consequences such as surgeries. So Healing Fungal and Parasite Infections, The Absolute Essentials, is a DVD set that comes with a manual, and it has a lot of this information integrated specifically to help you understand how to protect yourself and how to heal from these fungal and parasite infections. And I think you'll find it very, very useful. So thank you for joining me today. Now we can all get together and take back your world, and that's our world. So I look forward to sharing with you next week. Thanks for joining me. I'm Paul Chek.